All right, welcome to The Explainer. What we're talking about today, well, it sounds like something straight out of science fiction. We're looking at one of the most ambitious conservation projects on the entire planet. It's an incredible story of loss, a mind-blowing genetic discovery, and honestly, a whole lot of hope. So let's just dive right in. We are going to unpack the unbelievable story of the Caspian tiger. I mean, this is an animal that was literally a ghost, wiped off the face of the earth, but it just might be getting a second chance at life.
But before we get to the amazing comeback part of the story, we first have to understand the tragedy. We need to know what was lost and exactly how we lost it.
So, picture this tiger. We are not talking about your typical jungle cat. This thing was a giant, a massive predator, perfectly adapted for the cold, thriving in the wetlands and reed beds of Central Asia. It lived in these really unique riverine forests called tugai that snaked all the way from Turkey to China.
And its extinction, wow, it was shockingly fast, and honestly, pretty brutal. When Russian colonists expanded into the region, they didn't just clear land for farms. No, they launched a deliberate campaign using the actual army to exterminate the tigers, and within just a century, poof, they were gone.
So for decades, that was it. The case was closed. The Caspian tiger was just another tragic entry in the long book of extinct animals. But then, a whole new kind of science was about to blow the case wide open.
And this is where it gets really interesting. Scientists started to ask, well, what if the story isn't actually over? What if the real story isn't in the history books, but it's locked away somewhere, like in its genetic code?
This is where the magic of ancient DNA, or aDNA, comes into play. You can think of it like this. It allows scientists to become genetic archaeologists. They can literally look back in time by pulling tiny, degraded fragments of DNA from dusty, century-old museum specimens.
And believe me, this was a full-on genetic detective story. Researchers had to hunt through collections all over the world, looking for any scrap they could find. A piece of a pelt, a fragment of bone. Then they had to painstakingly piece that degraded DNA back together, all leading up to one critical final step: comparing it to all of its living relatives.
And all of that painstaking work, all that digging through dusty museum archives, it all led to one single, absolutely mind-blowing discovery. Something that would totally rewrite the future of tiger conservation. Okay, so what you're looking at here is basically a family tree for all the tiger subspecies. Now, don't worry about all the scientific names, just focus on those two branches that are highlighted. One is P.T. vernata, that's our extinct Caspian tiger. And right next to it, I mean so close they're practically touching, is P.T. altaica, and that is the key to this whole story. The results were just astonishing. It turns out the extinct Caspian tiger from Central Asia and the living Amur tiger from the Russian Far East were basically the same animal. Their DNA was a near-perfect match, different by only a single letter of genetic code. They were, for all practical purposes, genetic twins who'd just been separated a little while back in evolutionary history. And that quote you see right there, that spells out the massive implication. This wasn't just an interesting fact for a science journal. It completely opened the door to a radical, almost unthinkable idea. If the Amur tiger is a living blueprint for the Caspian, could we use it to bring the Caspian back?
With that genetic puzzle solved, the whole conversation changed. What was once a total conservation fantasy suddenly felt possible. The question wasn't if anymore, it was how.
And the answer? Well, it began with this number. The government of Kazakhstan stepped up and designated a massive protected area. We're talking 415,000 hectares as the place for the tiger's return. This became the Isle Balkhash Nature Reserve.
But here's the thing, right? You can't just drop a tiger into an empty field and hope for the best. You have to rebuild its entire world from the ground up. And that meant replanting those special tugai forests and, most importantly, rebuilding the entire food web. They brought back the tiger's main prey, like Bukhara deer and kulan, to build up healthy herds.
So, you fast forward through decades of planning, all that genetic detective work, and this massive restoration project, and here we are. This is not a what-if anymore. It is actually happening.
And I want to be really clear, this isn't some plan for the distant future. This is happening right now. In fact, this year, the very first two Amur tigers, a pair named Odana and Kuma, arrived in Kazakhstan. There are more on the way next year, and it's all building towards a very clear, very ambitious goal. And it all comes down to this number, 50. That's the magic number. The ultimate goal is to establish a thriving, wild, and completely self-sustaining population of 50 tigers roaming free in that reserve by the year 2035.
You know, this whole project is about so much more than just one animal. It kind of blurs the lines of what extinction even means, right? It shows that maybe, just maybe, we can bring back these ecological ghosts. And it leaves us with this huge, powerful question. Is this the blueprint for the future of conservation? A way to heal the planet not just by protecting what we have left, but by actually restoring what we all thought was lost forever?